Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
God, I wrote about this story so much. It was weird as I was reading through this. It was all coming back to me again. It's sad because it shouldn't be in our rearview mirror. It's not something that should be sort of like, oh, yeah, that old story. No. This is relevant today as we speak. In fact, Joe DeGenova is going to join us at 7. If you remember last Monday, as it was announced that there could be a grand conspiracy investigation into the entire Russian hoax scandal from 2016 and 2017, Joe DeGenova predicted on this show last week that Barack Obama will be called to testify before a grand jury. And I remember being stunned by that statement. And now, as we see this document that Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard dropped on Friday, I think Joe is absolutely, as usual, correct on that. This investigation is just starting to heat up, finally. Mm-hmm. Let's lay out, first of all, the major memo. You know what? Mike Emanuel at Fox laid out kind of a neat timeline here for you, and I'm going to let him summarize it for you because it has to do with the daily presidential briefing that the president at the time, Barack Obama, was receiving from his intelligence community, specifically about concerns that Russia might be in some way having an effect on the 2016 presidential election. Spoiler alert, the conclusion was that they did not have any effect on the election. But for some reason, that conclusion was changed. Take a listen.
You have some of the most powerful people in our country directly leading at the helm, President Obama and his senior-most national security cabinet, essentially making a very intentional decision to create this manufactured, politicized piece of intelligence.
According to the documents, August 31st, 2016, a Homeland Security official tells then DNI James Clapper that there was, quote, no indication of a Russian threat to directly manipulate the actual vote count. On September 9th, 2016, officials argue the presidential daily brief should make clear that Russia, quote, probably is not trying to influence the election by using cyber means to target election infrastructure. Then after the election, the tone appears to change. On December 9th, 2016, the documents reveal the Obama White House held a National Security Council Principals Committee meeting on a sensitive topic. It included then DNI James Clapper, John Brennan, the CIA director, Susan Rice, who was National Security Advisor, Andrew McCabe from the FBI, and others. After that, an email came out to Intelligence Committee leaders from an aide to Clapper saying the intelligence community was prepared to produce an assessment per President Obama's request to pull together the information intelligence agencies had about the tools Moscow used and the actions it took to influence the 2016 election. By December 14th, there were leaks saying that intelligence community officials believe, quote, with a high level of confidence, that Russian President Vladimir Putin was personally involved in the U.S. election hack. Then, on January 6, 2017, 2 weeks before the first Trump inauguration, a new intelligence community assessment was released that, according to the Office of DNI, quote, directly contradicted the intelligence community assessments made throughout the previous 6 months. Former President Obama's office declined to comment.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. And that first voice you heard was from DNI Tulsi Gabbard. We've got a little bit more from her because she did a lot of media on this over the weekend. But the bottom line is, all during the campaign, every single presidential assessment that Barack Obama received from his intelligence community said, now, Russia doesn't really have any way to affect this election, and they're not affecting the election. There's nothing going on. And by the way, this is at a time when one of those briefings early in the year included the CIA director, John Brennan, informing President Obama that the Clinton campaign was hatching, the Steele dossier. They were coming up with opposition research to make it look like Trump was in bed with Putin and beholden to the Russians. The reason for this, by the way, everybody needs to remember, is that the Hillary Clinton email scandal was growing every single day. Even when James Comey said, we're not going to press charges, Hillary Clinton did have top secret classified information on her unsecured email server, and she wasn't using the government server to protect all of those top secret emails. But there's not enough there that a jury will convict her. Remember, James Comey sort of like just waved his hand and made the whole thing go away. But it kept hurting her politically. So they dropped this Russian collusion bomb to distract people, to make it look like, no, I'm not the one who's dangerous. Trump's the one who's dangerous, and he's in bed with the Russians. It was all a campaign scheme, and Obama knew about that. Brennan knew about that. And yet after the election, suddenly they changed all of their assessments, and Obama directed the intelligence community to come up with a lightning speed, like they turned this thing around in 3 weeks, assessment that, in fact, Russia had helped Donald Trump win the presidency. And I point one more thing, and I'm sorry, Julie, I'm going to go on here.
No,
because I'm really plugged in on this story.
Yeah.
There was a book that came out. You know how the book that's out right now called 2024, about the 2024 presidential election, where 3 reporters were embedded in the Biden, Harris, and Trump campaigns. And then they write a book about the election after the fact. Well, a book was written in 2017 about the 2016 election. It was called Shattered. It was by John Allen and Amy Parnes, same two that wrote one of these latest books about Trump. Here's a paragraph of a meeting that took place the week after Hillary Clinton lost the election. I'll read it to you. That strategy had been set within 24 hours of her concession speech. Mook and Podesta assembled her communications team at the Brooklyn headquarters to engineer the case that the election wasn't entirely on the up and up. Did you hear those words? Engineer the case. Podesta and Robbie Mook, the campaign manager, get together at the headquarters to engineer the case that the election wasn't entirely on the up and up. For a couple of hours, with Shake Shack containers littering the room, they went over the script they would pitch to the press and to the public. Already, Russian hacking was the centerpiece of the argument. So once again, it was the Clinton campaign after they lost, and she was humiliated. Like, how could you lose? You had all this money, and he was just a horrible person. And they said, oh, no, that's because it wasn't a legitimate election because of Russia. That was the week after the election in November, and by the time you get to the first week of December, there's Obama directing the intelligence community to engineer findings that Trump was an illegitimate president. All right, we've got more on this. It is huge. I want to lay more out for you so you can see that Obama knew about it and directed all of this behind the scenes. And we're going to talk about what happens next, including our conversation with Joe DeGenova at 7:05. First, though, it's 6:15. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the 5s, Jamie Wittens in the Hadid. Steve Hirschhorn today, in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
95 northbound still very slow from Dale Boulevard up to the Purple Heart Bridge across the Occoquan. You get a brief break, and then you slow again from Lorton now up to where the accident was just before the Beltway in Springfield. It's cleared up now. Everything is open, but those delays continue there. Around the Beltway, you'll find it slow on the outer loop from University Boulevard around to Georgia Avenue in Silver Spring. Then it's still very slow down from 123 to the large debris in the roadway blocking 2 right lanes at Route 7. 270 southbound, still very heavy and slow from Route 80 down to the truck scales. Heading into town now on the Baltimore-Washington Parkway, there was an accident near Route 450 heading southbound on the Parkway. In delays now as you're down past Route 50. Now from GarageDoorRepair.com, the WMAL Stormwatch 7 forecast.
It's going to be beautiful, actually, today and for the next several days, really the whole week. Today, sunny with a high of 86. Tonight, clear. Overnight low 67. Tomorrow, sunny with a high of 85. Wednesday, sunny with a high of 88. Thursday, sunny with a high near 92. And by Friday, we might get up to 98 degrees. Hot weather coming. Right now, though, it's nice and mild, 77 at 6:16.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
There's no question in my mind that this intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered be published, which contained a manufactured intelligence document. It's worse than even politicization of intelligence. It was manufactured intelligence that sought to achieve President Obama and his team's objective, which was undermining President Trump's presidency and subverting the will of the American people. So yes, next week we will be releasing more detailed information about how exactly this took place and the extent to which this information was sought to be hidden from the American people, hidden from officials who would be in a position to do something about it. And that's really the point here that I think is most important, Maria, and you said it in your opening. Accountability is essential for the future of our country, for the American people to have any sense of trust in the integrity of our democratic republic. Accountability, action, prosecution, indictments for those who are responsible for trying to steal our democracy is essential for us to make sure that this never happens to our country again.
Yeah, it's amazing. And sadly, as you can well imagine, much of the media ignored this story over the weekend. But I think if DNI Gabbard and other investigative units within the Justice Department really do their job here, it's going to be impossible for them to ignore. There's a little bit more here, but I just want to pause, Julie, so you can get in on it, because I know that you followed this story incredibly. You were focused on it at the time.
Actually, Larry, I will tell you, I know that you have followed this much more closely. I mean, from the beginning. And look, I will just say one thing about this. I'm really glad this is coming out. I'm really so thrilled that Tulsi Gabbard is releasing documents on this. There is just one little thing that in the back of my head yes. that sort of galls me. It's like, well, we knew this. Right. We knew this. And there's a number of people, you, Molly Hemingway, and many writers at the Federalist, Margot Cleveland, you've got her down here. You've got so many reporters that are identified on the right. I would like to say they're more mainstream reporters these days. Knew about this.
I just want to throw Lee Smith in there.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Lee Smith did great reporting, and Julie Kelly. But I worked. Yeah, finish your thought. And
no. My only thought is that I can already see what's going to happen. It's going to go to the Free Press. Matt Taibbi is going to get the story. Oh. Right? I don't mean to be negative. It's just because I am so glad that it's getting out. Yeah. But I just can see the trajectory here, and it does frustrate me because I'm reading all this and I'm like, yes, absolutely, yes. But I'm like, Larry, I got this job with you 5 years ago, and you were hot under the collar about it then. You were talking about it then. And I remember coming in and going, gosh, I really got to catch up on this stuff. I got to really learn this stuff. So that's fine. I'm thrilled. Yeah. But so-called conservative media has been on this beat, and they probably
right.
will get very little credit for this.
You're right. Well, think about it. CNN, Jake Tapper and the Washington Post, they all got awards. They actually are sitting on Pulitzer Prizes right now for covering a fake story. All they did was they took these leaks.
Wait for Jake Tapper's next book.
Yeah,
that's right, Larry.
He'll make millions on the book on Russian collusion. Oh, the whole thing was a hoax, apparently. You're right. And Lee Smith in particular, who's a great investigative journalist who I had on this radio station on a very regular basis.
Yep.
Lee and I, right after the 2016 election, I was hired at the Weekly Standard, believe it or not, when
Larry.
Bill Christo and Steve Hayes were still there, because the ownership of the magazine and the ownership of the website recognized that they had lost their way by being so negative and anti-Trump. Yeah. So they brought me in to sort of balance that out a little bit and to do some good journalism.
How'd that go?
And the story broke during that time. Obviously, I was there from January through the end of March 2017, the first 3 months, and then I was fired because I was, too nice to Trump, apparently. Right. Lee Smith was an investigative journalist at the Weekly Standard at the time, and he started pulling on these threads. He worked there. He worked there along with Mark Hemingway, Molly's husband, and we would talk sometimes in the office, and I'd be like, "What's going on around here?" And Lee was on this story. Lee knew this story. He had sources in the intelligence community. He knew that the whole Russian collusion thing was bull, and they would not let him write that at the Weekly Standard.
That's
and
right.
it died.
What happened
I'm
to the
glad
Weekly
it died.
Standard, Larry?
Yeah, exactly. It's gone, and it deserved to die.
It deserved to die.
Lee Smith is a great journalist. He uncovered a ton of this stuff beforehand, but now it's been validated by
and
Tulsi
also David
Gabbard.
Nunes. I mean, just ridiculed. I mean, the kind of making fun of him and his family and what they said about him, and Kash Patel. Let's think about heroic.
Who was the chief investigator for David Nunes? Oh, I know. You're right. Devin Nunes, excuse me.
Sorry.
All right,
yeah.
so where does this go next? Well, here's a little bit more from Tulsi Gabbard. This will be cut 12, if you don't mind. Take a listen.
Will we ever see anyone held accountable for this incredible lie on the American people?
I will do all that I can, and we have whistleblowers, actually, Maria, coming forward now after we release these documents, because there are people who were around, who were working within the intelligence community at this time, who were so disgusted by what happened. We're starting to see some of them come out of the woodwork here because they, too, like you and I and the American people, want to see justice delivered.
Yeah, we all do. And I love the fact that she's got whistleblowers now, I think, is potentially a huge development. Mm-hmm. You remember that talking point that they all repeated. We made joking montages. I'm sure we still have them in our file archive where 17 intelligence agencies determined that Russia helped Trump in the election. 17 agencies, 17 agencies, 17 agencies. Remember how they kept repeating that over and over again?
Yeah.
That was the IC assessment that Obama ordered. He ordered that finding to be created despite contrary intelligence that they had at their disposal. And every time anybody said, well, show us what you're talking about. How did you reach those conclusions? Oh, that's classified. That's top secret. We can't show that to you. And it all was a hoax. It was all manufactured. It was Obama doing this on behalf of Hillary and the entire deep state team there to undermine Trump before he even took office. And it was an outrage then, and it's an outrage now. It should be treasonous, illegal behavior. We'll see what the DOJ does it. And most importantly, at 7:05, we'll hear from Joe DeGenova. It's 6:23.
Coming up, we're going to talk to Jason Johnson. He's president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. And he's going to tell us about this issue of D.C. police potentially manipulating crime data to make it appear crime has fallen. So keep it here. This is an important interview. Keep it here. It is 6:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. And Julie, help me welcome Jason Johnson. He's the president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund, and he's the former deputy commissioner of the Baltimore Police Department. Mr. Johnson, thanks for joining us, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, your role in both Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund as well as Deputy Commissioner of the Baltimore Police Department really comes into play on this topic because we're learning now that a D.C. police commander has been suspended and accused of changing crime statistics. Explain how that could even happen. I mean, crime statistics are what they are. Are things reclassified or misclassified, or is the media and the elected officials that oversee the police department just lied to? How does this happen, and is it directed by those very elected officials, in your opinion?
Well, Larry, do you remember a energy company down in Houston called Enron?
Yeah.
That is it's Enron style accounting that comes up sometimes, and just for background, every major city police department in America has a process based around one developed by NYPD back in, the early 90s called CompStat. And so what CompStat is that the crime data on a very regular basis, on a daily, twice weekly basis, are held, individual precinct or district commanders are held accountable for those numbers. And so they have an incentive to make the numbers look really good, just like Enron made the profits look really good for their investors. And sometimes it is driven from, as high as the police chief or even the mayor to help massage those numbers. Everyone benefits in government when the crime numbers are coming down. So there's a strong incentive to make that happen. Now, did that happen here in this particular case? It's hard to tell. I know you guys are going to have Pepperton on later in your show, and he probably has some very specific information, some evidence, if you will, but that's where the incentive comes from. Sometimes it's the individual commander who just wants to look good, and sometimes it's really pressure coming down from on high.
I'm I'm curious, Jason. We're talking about D.C. police potentially manipulating the data here, but this seems to be a pretty widespread problem. We've seen in major cities that, according to the FBI crime statistics, they take local data and put it into that crime statistic sort of catalog, and we found that that's not valid. Many of the crimes have been sort of left off. I mean, how widespread is this problem, and what is going on in the culture of policing that this is tolerated?
Well, it's actually sometimes encouraged, for, as I say, from the police chief, just like school superintendents and every other government executive. All of their rewards are based around data. They say they're data driven, and that means that for schools, they're looking at school performance. They're looking at test results and things like that. So the superintendent lives and dies on the test results. They have to do to get the test results right, or even the grades or whatever the measure is, then that's what they're going to do. And the same sometimes is true with law enforcement leaders, that they will feel this pressure to show improvement, to show, look, crime is coming down. And so, again, sometimes it's an individual district commander who wants to look good, and so they artificially manipulate the data to make it look like crime is coming down in their district, like they're doing something right to make that happen. And then sometimes it's someone higher up, a police chief, a mayor, who puts pressure on their subordinates to actually produce good data, sometimes specifying what that means and sometimes not. But the result can be data manipulation. I mean, if you look throughout history, just in the last 30, 40 years, there have been scandals, many scandals across really every major metropolitan area, including Baltimore, by the way, which in the late 90s had a crime data manipulation scandal. NYPD has had several. They're somewhat common because of the incentives.
Right.
Everyone wins in government if crime is coming down.
But the losers here, if I may, Mr. Johnson, appear to be, first of all, the public, because we deserve the truth, and we deserve to also sort of be on our guard and protect ourselves if crime is up. I mean, that if you're constantly told crime is going down, it might give you a false sense of security in a place that can be dangerous, like Baltimore or D.C. But secondly, what about the cops themselves? If there's a crime problem in D.C., the cops need more resources, the cops need more help, and they're suffering because of a fellow cop, this commander who is now accused of manipulating the data. He's hurting his own brothers and sisters in uniform.
Well, there's no question about it if that's the case, if in fact crime data is being manipulated, which has yet to be proven, but serious allegation. There's no question that it ultimately hurts everyone, right? Because it misleads the public, it misleads, budget dollars are going to be misdirected, pressure to hire more officers is going to be reduced. If everyone thinks crime is going down, they want to use that money for something else automatically. So, whatever the truth is on crime has to be reflected in the crime data, and that's why this, of course, is very dangerous when this happens. There's no question about it. Now, I would add also that, in this case, and it bears mentioning that the allegations came up weeks after this commander made a complaint against one of his superiors, and so it's kind of further thickens the plot of
yeah, maybe they're throwing this person under the bus because this person has his own complaint with the police command. All right, well, it'll unfold, but I appreciate you shedding some light on this for us as we continue to look at what could be a growing scandal within the District of Columbia Police Department, or perhaps in the District Council, or both. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We've got the chairman of the D.C. Police Union, Greg Pemberton, coming up at 8:35 to talk about this topic as well. It's now 6:44.
WMAL, making sense of party politics, because somebody's got to hold their feet to the fire. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Hey, Julie.
Hey, what?
We're talking about how the Russian collusion hoax that crippled the Trump administration there for the first couple of years with the Robert Mueller investigation, James Comey, the media hysteria, and the majority of Democrats, it was like by a scale of like 80% plus, who when polled said Donald Trump was an illegitimate president. He didn't win the election fair and square. He stole it with Vladimir Putin and Russia's assistance. Remember that whole thing?
Yeah.
We just sort of dove into it a bit with the latest revelations here, and we're going to get into more of it with Joe DeGenova, but it occurs to me, you know that woman Abigail Spanberger? You ever heard of her?
Yeah, sounds familiar.
She's going to be your governor, right? Yeah,
No,
she's
not.
running for governor right now in Virginia. You know, she ran for office in 2018, and a huge narrative that she had in her campaign was the Russian collusion hoax. Remember, Abigail Spanberger is a former CIA analyst.
That's right.
She ran on that story. She ran being we need to hold Trump accountable. He's an illegitimate president. Russia helped him win the election. One wonders, as a former intelligence committee member as well, and a former CIA officer, what she knows about this story and when she knew it, and
was she involved?
Whether she may have been involved or whether she knew any of the details about this. You know, there's a whole lot of people who lied in the intelligence community between this story and the Hunter Biden laptop story, remember? Oh, that's just Russian disinformation and all that. She's running on her record as this professional CIA analyst and caseworker. Then maybe she should answer questions about this, considering she repeated all of those lies at the time.
She uses that as like some sort of proof that she's a great patriot, that she's dedicated to, furthering the interests of the American public, really concerned about national security. Well, that's all come crumbling down. In fact, those people at the CIA and in the intelligence community that, for instance, signed that letter saying that there was Russia collusion without an ounce of evidence, they are now being seen for what they are. This, to me, is traitorous behavior. They have got a lot to answer for, and she aligned with them. She aligned with that set in the intelligence community, and she's now has a lot to answer for.
She aligned with them, and she parroted the lies.
Yes,
to
100%.
win election.
The fact that we know a foreign adversary government, a longtime foreign adversary government, meddled, and I'm not talking about collusion, I'm talking about their efforts to meddle and interfere in our elections. The active measures that they took against us, the fact that they hacked a major political party, they hacked one of our presidential candidates, they took active measures to try and impact our election.
She kept repeating it over and over again, active measures, active measures. She undermined Trump. She acted like she was a grown-up in the room, that she was a CIA person. She'll get to the bottom of it, and that's how she won her first election in 2018. Now she wants to be the governor of Virginia. And listen, she wants to it's all over. You go to her website, former CIA caseworker, CIA. Okay, then you need to answer for all of this. I want her opinion now. Where does she stand on this story? It's 6:53.